Going into your next record after you just completed one, it always feels like, how the hell are we gonna make another album now, you know?
Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in Steve Blanco of Imperial Triumphant. Steve, it is so good to chat with you today. How are you?
I'm doing very well, Keith. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, man, congratulations on the new album, Spirit of Ecstasy. It is super awesome. We have been big fans from the very beginning. I mentioned off air, we are huge Kenny G fans, not Kenny G, this guy, although he also finds his ways into things. But Kenny Grahowski, of course, from many wonderful bands, and we've followed this band from its inception to now. And it's been a pretty tremendous journey, I have to say, to follow it. A great arc.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks so much.
Every band in a traditional sense says this new album is my favorite or the best. But going into this one, I think the band has been growing a profile the last few albums, much greater than before. I think maybe the audience has caught up to the band in this case. And so going into the creation of Spirit of Ecstasy, I'm sure you guys didn't discuss it, but just musically, was there any touch points or things you wanted to do that you had not done before, or anything new you wanted to try experimentally?
Well, going into your next record after you just completed one, it always feels like, how the hell are we gonna make another album now, you know? And there's always things we want to try. We always have different ideas that we bring to the table, or different inspirations, And the reality of this album was more like, we like to put a lot into our records, so we put a lot of ourselves into it. We really didn't know how it was going to turn out, actually. We just kind of dove in. It was global shutdown. So we were just like, hey, we're not going to stop working. We're going to just keep working. And yeah, next thing we knew, a year later, we had a whole album.
Right on. And I'm sure again, it gets to be old hat with you guys in terms of the three of you, but you bring in other contributors sometimes, or create music for other people to perform with you or for you, in terms of other things like horns and all kinds of stuff that I hear layered in there. What's that kind of process like? Is it ever discussed or talked about, or it just naturally evolves and then you guys sit back, listen to tracks, and say, this needs horns, or this needs timbales, or this needs some other thing?
I mean, everything is definitely discussed, like between the three of us. We are pretty specific about what we want finally, but how we get there is, largely unknown. As far as guests go, we like to collaborate. We actually enjoy just collaborating with other, there's so many talented people everywhere, all around us. And it's actually kind of fun for us to come up with a list, like, let's see if we can, how many of these people on this list we might be able to get on this album, And this recent album, we got a pretty insane list of guests, so we're pretty grateful for that, But we do think of, oh, this tune, these people would be really cool contributing to this track, So we try to put it together like that.
Nice. A short list of who would work, basically.
Yeah, sometimes it's a not so short list, and then we just see who we could get.
The not so short list. I love it. And again, that there's a mutual respect. A lot of people, you guys are well known for other things you've done as well as this band. So obviously you have a multitude of people to call upon. There's a mutual, like I said, there's a mutual admiration. It seems like people want to play with you. As the band continues to grow and expand, more people find out about you, and people are like, I would love to jam with those guys someday. I'm sure you get those DMs and messages and calls sometimes, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, definitely. People message us. I mean, like I said, I'm just really very grateful that people, are into it, and the reception is good to the stuff we do, and that people want to be part of it.
Right on.
Cool.
Yeah, it's so awesome. And again, like I said, to see this growth, and the label has been very supportive and done a very nice job. Is metal fans and heavier music fans, if you will, is a broader tag, are receptive to a lot of things, but also just there's an audience for this and there's an audience for that. So I feel like the label has done a really great job helping position the band, also not selling it as anything else other than what it is, and letting people come to you, which I think is really, the best way to go.
I mean, Century Media has been really, they've been great to work with. I mean, we have a good relationship with them. They are, like you said, very supportive of what we do, which is, you know, not totally mainstream what we do, you know, and they are a huge label with huge acts in their rosters. So it's pretty cool that they've been as supportive and, helping us with resources.
It is very cool that the label that has Lacuna Coil also has Imperial Triumphant.
Yeah,
It really is. I mean
yeah,
that sincerely. That's not a pun.
totally,
That's not a joke or a put on. That's legit. I think
totally.
it's super cool. Century Media has been around for those that don't know forever, plus 30
Yeah,
plus years.
yep.
Shout out to your PR in America, Claire, who's awesome. Takes
Oh
good care
yeah,
of us and takes good
oh
care of
yeah.
you. And yeah, wanted to get that in there. But yeah, and it's really surprising to me in a way. I always feel like sorry Americans and my fellow Americans, but I always feel like the European tastes are just a little broader and a little more forgiving and a little more open minded. I have been to Europe and went to Roadburn and things like that where you guys have also played, and so I feel like Americans are not always ready for something radical. It takes time. There's definitely an audience, and there's definitely you guys have cultivated a really amazing audience. But I do feel like Europe was probably where you guys would have hit first anyway. All things, if you had like predicted this band 20 years ago, in a band that's over 10 years old now, I think if you had predicted this band, it's certainly like, oh, that would hit in Europe first for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting. The markets are a bit different. Europe has got the medieval metal connection. Like you can't take that away from the equation. Like, but I have to say that we do very well here in the States. Actually, it's just not promoted in the same way, or it's not seen in the same way here.
Right.
It's just it's
Yeah, I think,
different.
yeah, for sure, definitely. And I think, again, Vile Luxury was probably the record that really ticked up where people started taking note and really paying closer attention and like why they should pay closer attention. Not another black metal band. It's not a band with, it's not Batushka, it's not Ghost. It's a whole thing. I'm sure you've heard that. Again, I'm hardly original in my thought process, but I'm sure that's been talked about. I don't really look at anybody else's stuff, but we just run our own little fiefdom here for Ghost Cult and try not to look at the rest of the press world. We do what we do, but it's interesting to me that like less people, most of the people I talk to, just casually about this band, they're all about the music and the other stuff, the performances, which are wonderful, and been lucky to see a few. That's a whole other animal, and people are really tuned into the music and the artwork and themes, which is crazy and great.
Yeah, I mean we try to design the live show, to be at the best we can make it, even though we're not a huge band with, tons and tons of resources available to do it, but we do whatever we can with what we have because, the live experience, at least for me, growing up was so important. Like when I would see a band live and if I thought they sounded amazing live in comparison to the recording, then I was so much more hooked up by them. So we try to make the live show, the music and everything that we're doing, just like as rich of an experience for the audience as we can. Hopefully I mean we'd like to build a show really big, so we'll hopefully get to that point.
That would be amazing, or maybe a production for a DVD shoot or something like that. I think a long form
something
creative
like
endeavor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that could be very cool. Absolutely.
That would be amazing. Fingers crossed. I would love to see. Selfishly, I would love to see it. As just a humongous nerd and a theater geek and a just an extreme metal fan and a jazz fan and all those things. Out of curiosity, because again, this is our first chat ever. How did you get started in music? What made you pick up any instrument? What was the very first like spark that inspired you?
Yeah, well, I mean, I started as a kid playing trumpet in school. Music was a big presence in my house with both my parents. My mom was a Moroccan belly dancer, and my father was just really into music, and he was also a filmmaker. And so, you know, he had a great record collection. Things like The Rite of Spring, Stravinsky, and as a 5-year-old kid listening to this, that was going into my brain. But then, yeah, I know. I got really into music, and I played the drums. Actually, is what I think I probably took the most seriously. That took me into like really thinking of it as a life goal. Like pursuit. And then I played piano, jazz piano, for a long time. That was probably what I played the longest. And then I picked up bass because I got kind of burned out on the piano, and I was sort of missing the inspiration that you get when you're learning an instrument. You as a multi-instrumentalist, you probably know what I'm talking about. And
Yep.
yeah, and then the bass just took me to all these different places, and I ended up in Imperial Triumphant. So it's a weird transition.
Right on. A lot of similarities there, by the way. My mother was also a belly dancer and a belly dancer
Oh,
instructor,
cool.
and I also grew up with a lot of as much rock and metal as I came from. I also came from there was a classical background there and opera and things. And Stravinsky is heavy for any age, but especially as a child, it would definitely blow your little mind. And yeah, a lot of
Oh
great stuff
yeah.
there.
Yeah, the
But
Rite of Spring used to. I remember, it's basically. I always bring that piece up as the exemplary example for myself as inspiration, just because it's my earliest memory of music, and I can't really remember music before or beyond hearing that. And it used to scare the shit out of me when I listened to it, and but I was addicted to it. Like I kept wanting to get that feeling from whatever that it was doing.
amazing.
So.
Who are the bass players that inspired you to go land there?
Oh, I mean, so many bass players. I mean, Geddy Lee from Rush, probably a big, huge, humongous, you know, influence. Jaco Pastorius. Um, there's just what's it called? Les Claypool, Primus, another huge bass inspiration for me. Um, all the great jazz bass players, there's so many of them, like Oscar Pettiford, Ray Brown, acoustic bass players. And I don't know, I just was always into the bass. Even when I was a piano player. I would argue that most piano players are bass players anyway, because you have a really full understanding of bass when you play the piano. And
Indeed.
but beyond that, just drawn to the sound.
Right on. Flea also famously
Oh,
played
Flea,
trumpet
yeah, of
and then
course.
bass. I wasn't and even just saying if he was an influence, but he played trumpet. His dad was a jazz trumpeter. He played
Yeah,
trumpet as a child and then went to bass, obviously in high school. So to get into punk and be in bands. So amazing
yeah.
parallels to you. It's a good company to be in.
Yeah, seriously.
And I'm sure everybody contributes, but actually now that I think about it, and you talked about jazz piano, there's an incredible little 2-second piano break toward the end of Metro Vertigo, which just dropped a video, I think. And there's like a little flourish of piano, and I was wondering if that was you actually.
It is me,
All
actually,
right,
yeah.
amazing. It's
Yeah,
it's
no,
it's so sick. It's like the
yeah,
whole thing is chaos. It stops and it's like this beautiful mellifluous thing, and then it's like goes right back into it. It's amazing.
yeah, that was actually Kenny's idea. He wanted that. That tune is largely his construction originally, and he wanted some kind of piano break in there, so I just came up with that thing, that two-handed rundown, and everybody loved it, so we kept it.
So sick.
Yeah.
It was like the highlight for me of the early album there. I mean, there's a lot of great tracks that I love, and I know last interview I talked to Zach about a lot of thematic stuff with the tracks and just the concepts of the band. It's kind of weird. This is not related, but I'm gonna somehow relate it. I've been rewatching. I was very sick recently with COVID for like 3 weeks, and I could barely function. So I was just like drone watching stuff either on my phone or on the computer, and I rewatched like a whole bunch of Succession, which always reminds me of Via Luxury for whatever reason. And I just like I hear the band in my head as I'm watching these horrible rich people do terrible things to each other, which makes me like I don't know who I'm rooting for in a terrible cabal of terribleness, but yeah, for some reason that made me come back to the right before the record came out. Also, is the same period of time, so like I just like would like fall asleep watching Succession, wake up, listen to some of the tracks. So it's like a weird. I don't know. It's not correlated really for anybody else, but just for me, it is.
Well, maybe
So
there's some producers out there listening to you and thinking like, hey, maybe these guys could be a score to some of this stuff.
oh man, I would love to see you guys score a movie. I just saw Nope in the theaters, which has an incredible soundtrack and score, and
Cool.
is also very strangely Bernard Herrmann-y, dread and like using jazz to create dread feelings,
Oh
and
yeah.
I'm sure the composer wouldn't call it jazz, but there's like very obtuse musical stuff in there. It's not like a very typical Jason me. It's not Psycho. It's which is Bernard Herrmann, but it's like
Oh
very,
yeah, that's
you
definitely
know,
Bernard.
yeah, but it's very like the
But
Nope
he's also
soundtrack.
Taxi Driver.
He is my favorite Taxi Driver,
Yeah,
maybe
me
my
too,
favorite
man.
soundtrack ever. That's not like
It's one of my
songs.
favorite. It's one of my favorite pieces of art in general of all
Yeah.
time, really.
Nice, right on. See, all these things are somehow they find their way. We find our way around to them, but yeah, man, this Spirit of Ecstasy is, again, it's amazing, and it's great to see the response it's getting. And you guys have a tremendous amount of touring booked. I think probably your biggest touring run ever. This next like rest of the year.
Yep, we actually start. We're leaving tomorrow, actually. So, and we're gonna be basically be on the road for about 10 weeks. So
And
it's
do
a
you
long one.
when you tour like Europe, where you're about to head to, and you do things like brutal assault in a Fortress Josephov, do you travel with additional musicians for the whole tour? Do you pick up people locally, or are you just the three of you?
No, the live thing is the three of us.
Okay.
Occasionally, we'll have some guests. If we're in a city where we have some comrades. Sometimes here at home, we'll invite a couple people to play with us. Uh, we had a couple of members from Couch Slut. I don't know if you're familiar with Couch Slut,
Mm,
but they're
fantastic.
one of our favorite bands, and they're local friends of ours here in New York. And we had a couple members of them play on stage with us for a few shows, and that's always a blast.
Amazing. Yeah, good luck out there in Europe. These are good times. You have some festivals and a huge run of headline dates. So I'll check with the European team and see if anybody can pick up a date out there, or you are coming back to the States in the fall for another huge run.
Yep, you got the calendar, you know it.
I looked right before, made sure. And we cover stuff, wherever we can, Europe, America, and yeah, man, it has just been just a tremendous honor to just watch this journey with you guys. Just have a few more questions for you. You've been really
Sure, man.
candid and terrific. I really appreciate it. So what's the Imperial Triumphant tour bus music?
Oh man, it's so funny. We go through like these crazy phases where we'll just listen to nothing but Herbie Hancock Headhunters records, for like 2 weeks straight, or then we'll just listen to like some Meshuggah albums nonstop, or then we'll just find some new metal that we don't even know, we never heard of. We'll just like let's check some shit out. We just go through these different cycles, But we do have one tune that we kind of always listen to late at night when we're driving in the middle of nowhere, and that's Nefertiti by Miles Davis.
Of course, the great,
Yeah,
the
from
great.
from the record
I'm
Nefertiti.
old enough
That
that I got to
version.
see Miles as a child. I had no clue what was going on. My mom wasted a ticket on me. I
I
was
bet
just
that
like
was still cool as shit, though.
oh, it's cool thinking back on it that I got to, and I'm like old enough that I saw like Slayer and Frank Sinatra in the same week.
Hell yeah.
That's one of my bullshit stories. I tell people that's not bullshit. It's real, it's true, but it's like it sounds improbable. But yeah, I got to see Miles. I got to see, a lot of the greats as a little kid. And like I said, my mom wasted the ticket because I was just like, "What is happening? Why isn't he looking at the crowd? Why are we looking at his back? I don't understand anything." And then later she would explain it to me. And as I got older, and you get into just all his like hundreds of records that he made for Columbia. It's insane how much music he used to put out.
Insane.
It's weird thinking about like again like the music industry is so hard right now and so commoditized and so rough for underground bands, and it's wild to think that like Miles Davis has made like 250 records in his lifetime, and
Oh
Tony
yeah,
Bennett is on like 400 actual different records, no repeats.
yeah, and he played for huge crowds, man. Like instrumental music,
Yeah,
no vocals.
yeah, it was wild at the
It
time.
was
I
a
know it's
totally
hard.
different time. Totally
It's
different
hard
time.
now to appreciate it, but yeah, it
Yeah.
was insane. It's so awesome. I love to nerd out whenever I can with people about jazz. I'm a little starved. My interior circle is not very heavy on jazz. And if I said like Imperial Triumphant has an influence from Sun Ra and Frank Zappa, they'd be like, I get that, okay, sure. Because like in passing, they've heard a little bits, but like when you start going deep on Miles and not like Bitches Brew and other things, you go way deep.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
go
yeah.
way deep on Miles or Train, or Bird, and you go
Yep.
very deep. People are just like, huh? They glaze over. They're just like, I don't know what that is, which is a
Yeah, I
shame.
mean there was so much great music recorded, man, in the 20th century in that genre, man. It's insane.
Yeah.
Bill Evans, the piano player, he's one of my most influential musicians, really.
Mm, nice. Yeah, Bill. They're
Yeah.
still putting new stuff out with Bill that hasn't been released somehow. They found like his archives now.
Yeah, oh really? There's like
Yeah,
more
there's
stuff?
there's more stuff. Yeah.
It's funny. I don't always get into like the stuff that they dig up and put out, 'cause sometimes I feel like maybe he didn't want anyone to hear that shit, Like I don't know.
Like
That's just
Prince.
where my brain goes.
Yeah, leave a will, everybody. If you don't want certain things to come out, leave a will and leave
Seriously, especially
advance
now, right?
directives.
I mean, because everything goes out now.
Yeah, I will say the person doing the Prince catalog is actually a person I know who's over there, and he's a humongous Princeophile. So if it was
That's
anybody's,
cool.
it's in anybody's hands. He actually used to do PR for Relapse Records, by the way. If it's in anybody's hands,
Okay.
Bob Lugo. If it's in anybody's hands, it's in the right hands. But leave a will, leave some information for your family. Don't pass away and leave a tremendous amount of unreleased music because it will come out. And if you don't want it to, I can't believe it. The ghost of you will be mad.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh man, Steve Blanco, a music genius to a music nerd. Thank you so much, man, for spending some time with me and Ghost Cult and our followers. Thank you, man. Congratulations on everything, and be safe on tour.
Oh, thanks so much, Keith. Thanks again for having me.